the blanket men and women, and all who lost their lives in the fight for Irish freedom. This was an august occasion that will stay in my memory forever. It was at this commemoration when the thought struck me that volunteers George McBrearty and Pop Maguire were mown down exactly a week after another great Derry rebel, volunteer Patsy O'Hara, died in hunger strike. Patsy, as you know, was the fourth hunger striker to die, behind volunteers Bobby Sands, Francis Hughes and Raymond McCreesh. Between Bobby's and George's and Pop's deaths, 18 other people lost their lives in the conflict. 1 UDR man, 3 RUC, 5 British soldiers, 5 Catholic civilians, including children killed by plastic bullets, Caroline Kelly and Judy Livingstone. 2 Protestant civilians, a schoolboy called Des Gainey and his father Eric, and 2 INLA volunteers. So it is right that we acknowledge that these most harrowing of times for all sides, and that the copious amount of tears shed by the bereaved were neither orange nor green, nor red, white and blue. That said, questions abound, and one of them goes to the heart of the conflict. Is it right to assume that this substantial loss of life was a potential catalyst for the rethink that was taking place within the upper echelons of the Republican movement? By upper echelons, I am of course referring to Gerry Adams's kitchen cabinet, the leading Republicans who ran the hunger strike. And consequently, does the evidence tell us that the kitchen cabinet was re-evaluating the efficacy of armed struggle? There are 2 positions concerning this matter, one of which Donny Morrison set out just this week in his May Irish News piece. During this interview with John Manley, Donny Morrison advocated that the kitchen cabinet wanted to develop Sinn Féin as a viable political party. This was back in 1981, in order to give back potential leadership to the people. This is a very commendable view to take, if it's true. In his interview, Morrison goes to some lengths to say that ending the armed struggle was not on the kitchen cabinet's horizon, that they still believed in the supremacy of the armed resistance approach to British rule in Ireland. This is a very understandable position to take, because if he were to say something else, something along the lines that the kitchen cabinet had lost faith in the tactic of armed struggle, then it would be morally unconscionable for them to hide their views from volunteers like George and Pop. That is, if they didn't believe in armed struggle anymore, why were volunteers going out and getting killed? Specifically because the volunteers believed, their leadership believed in armed struggle. It would be equally unconscionable to hide this position from prisoners who were on a horrendous death mask, where 10 of their numbers would die horrible deaths. Morrison in his article referred to his ballot box and Armalite remark in the October 1981 Ardèche, and uses it as a foil against the suspicion that Adams, he and the rest of the kitchen cabinet no longer had faith in the tactic of armed struggle. There are 2 ways of looking at the ballot box and Armalite remark. A, that Morrison was being genuine, that he, and presumably the leadership around Adams, still held that armed struggle was the primary method of attaining a republic, but that the political development of Sinn Féin was an important prop in that strategy. The second way of looking at it is that Morrison was being disingenuous, that he and his fellow kitchen cabinet comrades believed armed struggle had had its day, and that constitutional politics alone was the way forward for the Republican movement. The alternative position to what Morrison advocated in his Irish News piece is evidenced by none other than members of the British cabinet in confidential communications. In papers marked secret, which were released by the Thatcher Foundation in 2013, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland in 1981, Humphrey Atkins, conveyed to none other than Margaret Thatcher on the afternoon of the 6th of July 1981, that's 2 days before Joe McDonnell died, that, quote, the provisionals need to settle the prisoners' problem on terms they can represent as acceptable to them if they are to go on, as we know some of them wish to do, to consider an end to the armed terrorist campaign. A leadership which is lost on the prison is not in a position to do this. End of quote. No matter what way you look at it, this is a hugely important statement. Question, who exactly are the some of them to whom Atkins refers, if not Morrison, or members of the Kitchen Cabinet? The use of the term some is also significant because it denotes that others may not be on board. And we now know that the Kitchen Cabinet had members on the Army Council in their midst, and they did not inform the full Army Council that they were communicating with the British. The tight phrase, an end to the current terrorist campaign, and Atkins's minute to Thatcher was underlined in longhand. We have to wonder, how did the Brits reach this conclusion? Who informed them that the Kitchen Cabinet wanted to, quote, consider an end to the current terrorist campaign? Who? What emerges from this communication to Thatcher is the position that the Kitchen Cabinet, at least during, this is incredible, at least during and possibly before the hunger strike period, was considering an end to the IRA's campaign, and hence to embrace constitutional politics. To take such a viewpoint is not at all unreasonable. Indeed, it could be said that it is the duty of leadership to continually review the tactic of armed struggle, given the dire consequences of its application. What is unreasonable is that while the Brits might have been aware that a fundamental change was taking place within a very important section of the Republican movement, we prisoners, and certainly not the hunger strikers or volunteers like George or Pop, had any idea that the great peacemaker had lost faith in the tactic of armed struggle and was actively looking for a means to abandon it. Later, after the deaths of the 10 hunger strikers, Gerry Adams was able to pursue his mission to bring about an end to the armed struggle, along with Father Reid, John Hume, and figures attached to the British and Irish governments. As we now know, 2 days before Joe died, the British knew that, as far as the Kitchen Cabinet was concerned, the tactic of armed struggle was flawed, and they wanted to end it. But while they told the Brits, they kept it hidden from Joe. They forgot to tell Joe and the 5 hunger strikers who followed them to their deaths that, in their opinion, armed struggle had had its day. They also forgot to tell the courageous volunteers who were losing their lives in the killing fields of East Tyrone and beyond, and pre-arranged SAS ambushes. Nobody in the Kitchen Cabinet thought it prudent or honourable to let those brave men know that they'd thrown in the towel. Today we honour the memories of volunteers George McBrearty and Pop Maguire. I wish to thank the McBrearty family for this invitation to speak on this noble occasion. Colleagues now, the Commemoration and Full Block the Boo.